My name is Teresa Trinh, and I am Executive Board President of the Vietnamese Culture and Science Association. And what we're doing here today is we are here to promote Len Duong Youth Leadership Development Camp, founded by the Vietnamese Culture and Science Association.
And my name is Jaime. My Vietnamese name is Duong Duy. I am the camp master of Len Duong Camp 2023.
Welcome to The Vietnamese. I'm your host, Kenneth Nguyen. Being part of a culture of nearly 100 million Vietnamese people in the world today comes with a lot of pain, proud history, and privilege. Join me as I highlight and explore the Vietnamese experience from all over.
Something that I've always thought about is the fact that I straddle both cultures very well, I believe. And I feel that being Vietnamese means a sense of pride, a sense of accomplishment, a sense of sacrifice. My parents came over here as boat people in 1975, and I was born a year later. And so growing up, I was very much immersed in my Vietnamese culture, and it's something that I carry to this day. And I'm very proud of the fact that I am Vietnamese. The accomplishments of our culture, our people in such a very short amount of time is astonishing to me. So being Vietnamese means that I can take pride in my culture, in my traditions, and just loving everything about my culture, food especially.
Jamie?
Well, being Vietnamese for me, meaning that I can still speak Vietnamese. So I came over here, I came to Canada back in 1989. So cũng đã hơn 30 năm rồi mà Duy vẫn nói được tiếng Việt. Đó là nhờ ba mẹ lúc nào cũng dạy cho Duy biết là người Việt của mình còn, không? Tiếng Việt còn thì người Việt sẽ còn. Cho nên Duy lúc nào cũng ráng học hỏi, ráng học nói tiếng Việt. Và những lúc mà đi ra gặp bạn bè, chẳng hạn như là gặp Teresa hay gặp Ken, Duy cũng ráng nói tiếng Việt để cho mình lúc nào cũng nhớ tiếng Việt của mình. Chứ khi mà mình quên tiếng Việt của mình thì là mình sẽ không còn là người Việt nữa.
Great answer. Back in the day when I was growing up, in California, we had a few things. We had Jaime, which was a Catholic camp. And I think there was 400 kids that were coming from 17 churches in LA or Orange County. And it was such a beautiful experience to be around Vietnamese people for the weekend. And I think that this also happened in Missouri, Carthage, Missouri. It is called Thân Mẫu.
Something about Marian Days, the Marian Days
Marian
Festival.
Days, yeah. Đại hội Thân Mẫu. And do you guys know if it's still going on?
Yes, it's still going on every year. And I believe it is the second weekend in August still.
Yeah, I got to find time to go because I went maybe 5 times and it was such a beautiful. Yeah, Jamie,
when was the last time you went?
In the 90s. Yeah.
So I haven't gone, but it has changed tremendously. The whole area is all built out now and they've expanded. So my parents still go every year and I still want to go back and see. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And I remember in the 90s, 100,000 người. That was in the 90s. I can't imagine what it's like today.
And maybe we should do a trip and go together and then re-experience that again. I've never gone, but I've heard so much about it, and I'm a Catholic too. I always want to go, but I never have anybody to go with me. Maybe we all can go together.
We should all go this August or something, and I think we can learn a few things for London and for the podcast. I think that experience is, my mother would probably go crazy if she heard that I was going, because I haven't gone to church since the 90s, right? Like I've left.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Same here, guilty.
You too? Yeah. So and we'll talk about that too, because I found it interesting in the information that you sent that on Sundays you guys split up the Buddhists and the Catholics to split up and spend time. So I would love to talk about that when we get into it. But those two summer events happen when I was growing up, and I think that now finding out about Len Duong, I'm so thrilled to talk more about that today.
Yeah, and I'm thankful for Len Duong. A fun fact that you don't know is Jaime is actually Canadian, and we first became friends through Camp Len Duong. And even a more fun fact is he met his wife through Camp Len Duong. And so he married her and she's an American. So he came down and now he's an American citizen, right?
No,
Jaime?
no. I'm keeping my Canadian citizen
Oh, dual
because of the
citizenship.
healthcare, you know. Yeah, but no, I'm a proud green card holder.
Good. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about too, because at Jahe Niềm Tin and Ngày Thân Mẫu á, it a lot of couples meet that way too. So I think that that's a beautiful thing that I would love to talk about, because the Taiwanese have this thing called the love boat. They had that back then, and parents would send their kids because they knew that it was very difficult for Taiwanese kids to meet and start families. So this was like one of those ways that I think Len Duong, because I think the age range that Len Duong is 25 to 30, or is it younger?
It's a little younger. It's 18. It
18.
starts at about 18, 19. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so how did you both become involved in this camp?
Jaime, do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Teresa, you go first.
Okay. So I had always been approached by my parents to attend Camp Len Duong. My dad is a founding member of Hội Văn hóa Khoa học Việt Nam, which is VCSA in Vietnamese. And they have always asked me, but I've just never found time to go. And it wasn't until I graduated from college that I had more free time. And so I went. And it wasn't, it was a curiosity thing. It wasn't really like, oh, I really want to go. It was more of like, okay, mom and dad have been talking about this. They've been encouraging me to go. Let's go and see what it is. And I really have to say that I'm so thankful that I went. It has changed my life completely. It's made me the leader I am today. And I believe that Camp Len Duong has played a major role in me being able to step into the role of president of the organization today.
Còn mình á là từ lúc mà mình qua bên Canada năm 1989, rồi lúc đó ba mẹ bắt đi học tiếng Việt ở nhà thờ, tại ba mẹ dạy tiếng Việt ở nhà thờ. Thì lúc đó là ngoài Việt Nam cùng với Canada ra là Duy chưa bao giờ đặt chân hay là đi đến một chỗ nào khác. Thì năm 2003 tình cờ gặp chị Anh Lan là người founder của trại Lên Đường. Thì chị Anh Lan có nhờ ý mời Duy đi trại Lên Đường. Thì lúc đó là lần đầu tiên Duy đặt chân đến nước Mỹ. Lúc đó mình mới biết được là từ đó giờ mình giống như con cóc ngồi dưới đáy giếng vậy đó, như là mình ở một chỗ mà mình nghĩ là mình biết hết tất cả. Và khi mà Duy đi chạy lên đường rồi, Duy gặp gỡ rất là nhiều bạn mà gọi là cùng chung lứa tuổi và cùng chung chí hướng. À, và nó giúp cho Duy mở mang trí óc của Duy ra, cho Duy biết được là ngoài chỗ Duy ở là còn có nhiều tài năng, có nhiều tuổi trẻ ở khắp mọi nơi mà có thể giúp Duy có thể để trở thành một nhà lãnh đạo tốt hơn rất là nhiều. Và cũng ở chạy lên đường mà Duy gặp được Teresa, and then we become really good friends. At that time, we call each other BFFFF, like best friend from far away, right? And
Yes.
then yeah, and then we just become best friends, and we did, and then every time we see each other, and we just hang out. And now I moved over here to Houston, and then I get to see her every day. And now she is the president of VCSA, and then I want to come back to help her. And then I want to come back to give everything that I have to this camp, because I believe in this camp.
It's so crazy the way you just explain Ất Ngồi Đáy Giếng, and that's how I feel about the podcast. Same thing. I felt like I knew everything about Vietnamese people, mà thật ra chưa tới 1% của những người lãnh đạo, những người có tài, những người mà thành công của người Việt Nam mình ở hải ngoại và bên Việt Nam. We just don't know, right? And mình cũng không có biết về cái trại lên đường này. I had no idea that this even existed until Teresa reached out. And I'm so proud that we have these organizations and những cái việc tổ chức like trại lên đường. It's so amazing to hear about it. How did it start?
Well, it started in, oh gosh, I have the date somewhere. It's been so long. What is it? 1998 in Fort Worth, which is a city that is adjacent to Dallas, Texas. And at that time, we had 180 campers our first year. And they were mostly from Texas and a few from Oklahoma. And it was the brainchild of Dr. Anh Lan Nguyen. She is a member of VCSA, a longtime member of VCSA, former president. And she decided that she wanted a leadership camp for those between the ages of 18 to 35. And not only we call it a leadership camp, but it is so much more. We also have cultural aspects, team building aspects. And so it really is a camp for everyone. And so we started in Fort Worth, like I said, with 180 campers. The following year, it was held in Livingston, Texas, which is northeast of Houston a little bit, and the number almost doubled from 180 to 312 campers. So you can imagine with the large number of campers each year, we had to have a large number of staff. And all of this is volunteer. These are people who are on the boards of VCSA, and also their friends and family that have come out to help. So it is a really encouraging moment to see everybody work together to put on something for the community, for the young people in the Vietnamese community.
Yeah, so Len Duong Camp is not just in Texas. In 2003, it was the first time that Len Duong Camp was organized outside of Texas. It was in Memphis, Tennessee, and that's where I went. And in 2004 was in California, was in San Diego.
Wow.
Mhm.
And in 2005 we came back to Texas. And then in 2009, first time Len Duong Camp went to Canada, and we have, I think, about over 200 campers that went to this camp in 2009. So we've been around to many different states in the US and also in Canada too.
It makes me wonder how many of these situations like Camp Len Duong that Vietnamese people don't know about, right? Len Duong is like one of maybe hundreds of events and organizations that happen with
Mhm.
no amplification. I don't know any of my friends that know Camp Len Duong, and we are very deep in the culture of Vietnamese in the U.S. in the diaspora, and this is the first time I've heard of it. And I am a big proponent of camping. I love to camp and be outdoors and be part of this conversation of leadership and all these other văn hóa conversations that we have within our community. So this is an amazing thing that we get to explore. And I am so, again, grateful to hear about this camp. What activities actually happen at the camp every year?
So basically, for let me so I can answer this for Teresa. So Len Duong Camp usually start on Friday and end on Monday. Friday is the day when everybody's just coming in, gather around, and then we're going to divide all of them into teams, into 12 different teams. And Saturday, we want to focus on leadership skills. So on Saturday, everything that we teach is all about leadership skills, communication skills, nonviolent communication, and many different kind of workshops. We have a lot of speakers coming in. Teresa can talk about those speakers after. And then on Sunday, we just focus on, we call it Culture Day, which is focus on văn hóa, lịch sử của Việt Nam. Everything we do on Sunday is all about Vietnam. We want to teach the kid, about Vietnam. Chẳng hạn như là we have thả thơ. I don't know if you know anything about thả thơ. So we have thả thơ on Sunday để dạy cho mấy bạn trẻ biết về ca dao và tục ngữ của Việt Nam. Rồi sau đó mình có trò chơi lớn. Mình lồng cái trò chơi nó vào một cái câu chuyện, mà nhất là những câu chuyện lịch sử Việt Nam. Có năm mình làm gọi là Trần Quốc Toản nói về Trần Quốc Toản vị anh hùng tuổi trẻ của chúng mình. Có năm mình nói về Trần Hưng Đạo đánh đuổi giặc Mông Cổ. Có năm mình nói về Nguyễn Huệ, vua Quang Trung Nguyễn Huệ. Cho nên xong rồi tối đó mình có một cái lửa trại và tất cả các bạn trẻ được quay quần bên nhau, hát những bài hát về tuổi trẻ và chơi những cái trò chơi vòng tròn chung với nhau để tìm hiểu thêm về về tiếng Việt của mình và về lịch sử văn hóa của mình. Và ngày cuối cùng thứ hai là ngày mà chúng ta có thể gọi là ngày mà chia tay. Thì trong ngày đó thì chúng ta được viết những cái gọi là những cái câu chia tay, mà sau đó chúng ta được bỏ vào những cái bao của từng cái trại sinh đó, và chúng ta có thể chia sẻ những cái kỷ niệm mà chúng ta có trong 3 ngày vừa qua. Thì Teresa có thể giới thiệu những người keynote mà chúng ta đã từng mời vào trại lên đường.
Okay, well, usually ở trong trại lên đường đó là mình có một người keynote speaker, đó là năm nay là Boon Trần. Boon Trần là một người bác sĩ cũng như là một người mà có cơ sở thương mại. So Boon is a former camp master at Len Duong, And what he did was he later on he became a optometrist, and he built a successful optometry business with several offices. And then he decided that he's going to follow his passion, and so he started opening up small business that had to do with food and beverage. He opened up a brewery. He opened up a banh mi shop. So he is the ideal person to come back and kind of share his experience and thoughts with our Len Duong campers through his personal growth through Len Duong, through VCSA, and now onto his separate businesses. And like Jaime said, we also have workshops for different aspects of workshops. We have a small workshops in which campers can divide into teams and go attend. One of which is led by Miss Linda Akutagawa. I'm sorry, Akutagawa. And she's from an organization based, I think, in San Diego called LEAP, Leadership Education for Asian Pacifics. And she's been with us for many years. The organization has been with many years. And so she's decided to come back and visit us again. Also, we have from Lyceum Life Skills and Professional Development, Dr. Englan Witten. She is the founder of VCSA, of the Len Duong Camp at VCSA. And she has decided to come back and give a wonderful workshop on grace. I'm not going to tell you too much about grace, but the grace values is something that we really cherish within VCSA and that we kind of push throughout camp. It's amazing. And then we have our cultural presenters, the founder of VCSA, Mr. Bao Nguyen, and he will talk more about the cultural aspects of the Vietnamese culture in America. But this year we are trying to invite Mr. Jeff Watkins of YMCA International. Hopefully he can join us. And his topic would be interracial marriage. And that is because he is married to a Vietnamese woman. And he, I would say, is almost fully proficient in Vietnamese himself.
Yeah, he can speak Vietnamese really well.
Yeah, really well. Probably better than some of our campers, actually. And so we'd really like for him to be able to join us and speak on the values and the difficulties of being in an interracial marriage with when a person is Vietnamese and you are not. So that is some of the different aspects that we have going on at camp. We also have, of course, from East Films, we have writer-director Ham Jan, we have executive producer Jenny Lee, and of course we have you, Ken, that's going to be joining us for the first time this year.
Thank you for that invitation.
I know we are so excited to have your team join us because it gives us a different perspective. In years past, we focused on the traditional careers for Asian Americans, for Vietnamese Americans, the doctors, lawyers, and we're still going to have some of that, but we're also going to look at different other aspects of careers, such as the artistic careers, the creative careers. And so in addition to the team from East Films, we'll also have fashion designer, Project Runway winner, and owner of Chloe Dow Boutique in Houston, Miss Chloe Dow. And then we also have chef owner of a number of well-known restaurants in Houston, Aiko, Handy's, Duozo, Kokoro, and that is Mr. Patrick Pham. He will be talking about opening up a small business, being a chef, and those non-traditional Vietnamese careers and how his parents, felt about him going into that career. So we're very excited about that.
Wonderful. That sounds like an amazing lineup.
Yeah, we're so excited. We're so excited to have everybody join us.
If you ever need more exposure with other careers, we have obviously a plethora of Vietnamese people doing wonderful things, people in the NASA, FBI, all over the country doing amazing things. So just reach out if you need other types of guests to come to Camp Len Duong, and I'll ask for that to be arranged.
Great. And I work for NASA too. I'm a NASA contractor through Boeing down here in Houston. So
wow. What do you do?
That's my day job. Huh?
What do you do for them?
So I do a lot of quality stuff. Any experiment that flies to the space station, it has to fulfill these requirements. It can't weigh too much, draw too much power, be made of the right material. And so when these experiments fly to the space station, they submit their documentation to me saying they've met those qualifications. And so I review the documentations against what the requirements say. And I say, okay, you're good to go or not. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's amazing because, there's Vietnamese people in all aspects of American life, working throughout the country, doing just really amazing things like what you're doing.
Yeah. And it's so exciting. It makes me so proud of our culture and what we've accomplished in such a short amount of time, in 45 years or so, that we've been able to I guess, kind of go into the mainstream more so and be a part of all those careers that that you don't really think about when you were younger, as when we were younger as Vietnamese people. And we were like, oh, you got to be a doctor, a lawyer. But now we're branching out into all these different careers. And I think that's something to be commended for our community.
Amazing. Yeah. Now, how do you all figure out the theme, or is there a running theme annually? Do you switch it up every year? And if you do, how do you come to that agreement, or how do you come to the decision of what to base the weekend off of?
I'll let you take that one.
Okay. So every year we have different kind of theme, and it is up to the camp masters and the two camp master assistants and the program team to come up with a theme to tie everything together. So back in 2018, we have a theme called Yêu. Yêu là tiếng Việt là love, right? Nhưng mà dịch ra tiếng Anh á, là Youth Empowering Unity, có nghĩa là tuổi trẻ đoàn kết, tạo ra sức mạnh. And so after that camp, 2019, 2020, and 21, 22, because of COVID, we have to postpone the camp until now, in 2023. So in 2023, we want to continue that theme. So, but in case of instead of call it ill, we call it theme. So this year theme is theme. Theme là trái tim của mình, và cũng có nghĩa là Together Impacting Many. Và nếu mà cái chữ Together Impacting Many mà dịch ra tiếng Việt á, là dịch ra thành câu ca dao gọi là một cây làm chẳng lên non, ba cây chụm lại lên hòn núi cao. Và năm nay mình muốn focus vô cái unity, cái đoàn kết của tuổi trẻ Việt Nam của chúng ta. Tại vì một trong những cái mà Di nhận xét được trong cộng đồng của chúng ta là cộng đồng Việt Nam của chúng ta có rất là nhiều tài năng, có rất là nhiều tuổi trẻ, có rất là nhiều người rất là thành đạt. Nhưng mà một cái mà mình hơi yếu là về sức mạnh của đoàn kết. Mỗi người Việt chúng ta lúc nào mình cũng có một cái hội riêng, hay là có một cái công ty riêng, hay là có một cái business riêng, và ít khi nào mà mình đoàn kết lại để làm việc chung với nhau. Và nếu mà mình có đoàn kết lại làm việc chung với nhau là mình chỉ có làm maybe một năm làm một lần, hay là một năm làm 2-3 lần thì rất là ít. Và mỗi lần mà mình đoàn kết mà ít như vậy thì mình chỉ làm được vài chuyện nhỏ thôi, mà mình không có làm được chuyện lớn. Thì Duy hy vọng là sau khi các bạn chạy lên đường này, các bạn sẽ học cách lãnh đạo, và các bạn sẽ được đoàn kết, học đoàn kết và làm việc chung với nhau. Và từ đó các bạn sẽ nhận thức được ra rằng là nếu chúng ta muốn đi xa thì chúng ta phải đoàn kết làm việc chung với nhau. Và đó là chủ đề của trại năm nay.
Nhưng mà bây giờ Ken hỏi nè, hỏi này hơi ghê cấn nha.
Okay.
Tại sao văn hóa và người mình, cái việc đoàn kết hay bị yếu? Mà trong khi á, những cái văn hóa khác, những cái người khác như là người Đại Hàn thì họ làm việc rất là đoàn kết với nhau, mặc dù người ta cũng có những cái problems and issues trong cộng đồng của người ta. Nhưng mà tại sao mà cái lý do gì người Việt Nam mình á thiếu cái sự đoàn kết? Because you hear it all the time, and I always wonder, I always muốn phân tích tại sao mà mình như vậy. Để nếu mà mình phân tích được tại sao đó, thì nhiều khi mình có chỉnh được at that level of the why, right? Why do we know that we are deficient at this idea of unity? What can we do to fix and repair that?
Wow, that's a tough question. Like you said, to be able to fix it, we have to get to the heart of it.
Right.
And I really can't explain. Sometimes I feel like it's a matter of trying to one up one another, maybe.
I have an answer for that.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
Go ahead.
And we're going to spend some time on this because this is big.
Yeah. I think the reason why is because we're too talented. We have too many leaders, and then you cannot have too many chefs in one kitchen. And người Việt Nam của chúng mình là mình quá giỏi đi, cho nên người nào cũng muốn làm lãnh đạo hết. Mà nếu mà người nào cũng muốn làm lãnh đạo hết thì mình không thể nào mà làm việc chung với nhau được. Cho nên mình mà muốn đoàn kết làm việc chung với nhau thì kể cả những người lãnh đạo mình cũng phải biết lùi lại 1-2 bước để làm một member thường thôi, để giúp cho một người lãnh đạo khác. Chẳng hạn như là hồi xưa chúng ta có hội nghị Diên Hồng, thì hội nghị Diên Hồng là một trong những hội nghị Diên Hồng mà Trần Hưng Đạo đã tổ chức để tập hợp lại tất cả những nhân tài của nước Việt Nam của mình để đánh quân Mông Cổ. Thì tất cả những nhân tài đã tụ họp về, và không có ai muốn làm leader riêng của mình hết, và tất cả mọi người đều muốn đoàn kết chung với nhau để có một cái nguyên nhân là đánh đuổi quân Mông Cổ. Thì bây giờ trong xã hội này tất nhiên chúng ta không còn chiến tranh nữa, thì người tài giỏi của chúng ta quá nhiều và không có ai muốn là một người member thường hết. Nếu chúng ta gia nhập vào một hội đàn và chúng ta cống hiến những cái tài năng chúng ta có, và chúng ta không cần phải đứng lên làm lãnh đạo, chúng ta có một người khác làm lãnh đạo rồi, và chúng ta tin tưởng vào cái vision của người đó và cống hiến cái tài năng của mình, thì người Việt Nam của mình mới đi xa. Còn nếu mà ai mà cũng muốn làm lãnh đạo thì chúng ta sẽ không đi xa được.
Nhưng mà cái tâm lý của cái vấn đề cống hiến á,
Ừ.
nó rắc rối lắm. Tại vì cái tôi á, cái tôi
Ừ,
của người Việt
Yeah.
Nam, right? The
Mhm.
ego
rất là cao.
rất là cao, but it's not, cao thì is healthy, nhưng mà having it under control to move the
Mhm.
ball forward is, I think, something that we have not really taken the time as a culture, 1,000 years, to really say, you know what, let's get behind the leaders. And then how do you pick a leader when everybody's so yoy, right?
That is
So
true. That's the most difficult one.
we're going to have to
Yeah.
keep figuring this out. Tại vì unity requires an understanding of the mechanical side of the ego that I don't think that we've done deep exploration with. That's just what I'm hearing from both of you. I hope that I'm not too far off.
No, I don't think you're too far off. It's yeah, cái tôi của ai cũng lớn hết. So cái I don't know how to be more like, I guess people need to be more Kim Nhường, right? To be
Yeah.
more Kim Nhường and learn how to work with other people. And that takes a lot. I don't know if it's a generational thing. Do you see that a lot in the younger generation too, or is this something that you see in the older generation? I think that the younger generation really hasn't had that opportunity to step up and be those type of leaders that, you know, our elders were, right? And we saw a lot of this, I guess, the không có đoàn kết in the older generation, and sometimes it affects us, the younger generation, a little bit more. But I think that it is a perfect opportunity for us in our generation, because we're not the youngest of the generations, right? We're kind of like split in the middle between the two cultures. And what I'm hoping is that our generation is able to take all the lessons learned of the older generation and to kind of incorporate in our generation, so that we can learn that, okay, you know, being positive with each other, helping each other out, really being unified helps. Because if you notice that the Vietnamese community unifies when it's against a common enemy, right? But we don't really unify when we're trying to do something amongst our own in the community. So hopefully, you know, as our generation gets a little older, we'll learn and understand that unity does get us further, and that we're able to be really unified instead of divisive.
Now, I'm going to take it just another step so we can just have something to talk about here.
Sure.
The idea of honorifics, which is we have chị, tôi, we have bác, chú, gì, we have all these positions, right? And I think you add that with the Confucian way of respecting in the Asian society, that creates sort of these roadblocks to say that guy, that woman is the best of our leader. We're just going to get behind him no matter, even if he's 28 and we're all 45 years old, right? This idea of like an American way of doing it is like you remove the honorifics, you remove the titles, you remove all of it. Best man, best woman leads the team. And that is a little bit tricky when you have to sort of like nhường cho bác hay là nhường cho chú, right? And I think that that's something like Malcolm Gladwell wrote in a book called Outliers. He broke it down in one chapter saying in the 90s, there were these Korean airplanes that were flying into mountains. They were crashing. You know, it's like, if you think about the regular percentage of like accidents in the air, it's like 1 out of 10 million flights would hit, you know, accidents. But in Korea, the Korean airlines in the 90s, this was happening like at 10 times the rate of normal accidents. And they're trying to figure out what happened. In the cockpit, in the black box, they figured out that the honorifics cut down on the ability for a young junior pilot to tell the older captain pilots that, hey, there's a mountain in 500 yards, we're going to crash. But all of that, yeah, chú, yeah, and that got in the way of delayed the time, the reactive time. So I think that happens a little bit in our community too. This idea. So once they figured that out, they took out Korean language in the cockpit, and then the accidents went down, because when you remove the honorifics, you remove these sort of like titles, then the delay time or the real time in ego or toy, it gets removed. It breaks down. So I think about these like mechanical things that happen within our culture that perhaps exist. And when you ask me, Teresa, like the younger generation, do I notice it? I do notice that the younger generation have less of it because they're more Americanized and they don't have to play the honorifics game. Yeah.
And so within VCSA, it's funny is because my father is a founding member of VCSA. And a lot of the people who are founding members are still a part of the organization 30 years later. But for the most part, we are asked to call everybody that is the older generation, like my parents, Anh and Chị.
Wow, that's a big
step. It's a big
huge step.
It's a huge
Who figured
step.
that out?
Hang on just a second. Hang on. I have a dog barking in the background. Give me a second here. I'm sorry.
Brilliant, actually. So who came up with this idea of removing the honorifics and just saying, Anh với chị?
I don't really know. I think maybe when Jing Lan came through as president, it was really emphasized that she didn't want to be called Goal. So technically she's a Goal to me. And I would call her G. So now even to this day, I call her G. And so I think that for the most part, most of us call each other Anh and G within Hoi. Now that the younger generation has come in and they're calling me Goal, I'm like, oh, now I know why she never wanted to be called Goal. Yeah. It seems so much older and so much more formal versus Anh and Chị in the organization. So I think that that's probably why it started that way.
No, I think one of the other reason is too because Chị and Lan came from Hướng Đạo Việt Nam, the Boy Scout of Vietnam, and in the Boy Scout, we call each other anh chị all the time, no matter how old you are, how young you are. If I'm older than you, then I'm anh, and then if you're younger than me, you're em. And then when Chị and Lan formed Trại Lên Đường, the model of Trại Lên Đường is loosely based on some of the Hướng Đạo camp, and she just want everybody to call each other anh chị. That so that we so it sound more cozy, it sound more intimate. Nó tạo là một cái cảm giác giống như là mình là anh em trong nhà, không có ai thù hận nhau, chúng ta đến đây để làm việc và để vui chơi giải trí chung với nhau.
And that's a big difference. That really helps because trong giới nghệ sĩ is the same way, right? Unless you're really, lớn tuổi rồi như là cô Kiều Trinh, we call her cô.
Yeah.
Ý Lan hay là, Ý Lang's old enough to probably be my aunt or something, but we call her chị Ý Lang. That's the way it goes. And I think removing these titles takes us one step closer to removing the ego, and it really helps.
But in contrast, I also like that our culture keeps it a little bit. We recognize our elders, we respect our elders, and so I like that aspect. And plus, also, I love how you can identify how people are related to each other.
Yeah.
Like, who your yi and your gao is compared to your go and your ju, so when you refer to them that way, then what that person, how that person is related. So in some aspects, I kind of like it still.
Yeah, there's a beauty to that in the family or in a church. I mean, we don't remove those things for church or family, but it seems like for the arts or for scouts, those titles work really well.
I think when it comes to the community, I just want to echo your story that when it comes to the community, I think we should remove all of those prefixes. We just call each other anh em or Mr. Mrs. So that way we can feel closer to each other, and so that when we look at each other, I only see you and I only see you as someone that I want to work with and someone that I want to grow with, not somebody that I want to be on top of, or someone that I want to outdo. I just want to, it's like you can, when this is the first time I met you, and because of Len Duong Camp, we have an opportunity to sit here to talk to each other, and by calling you anh Ken or you call me em Duy, it create, nó tạo ra một cái tình thân mật mà từ đó giờ tuy là mình chưa gặp nhau, mà tự nhiên không bây giờ mình gặp nhau mình nói chuyện mà mình giống như là mình là bạn với nhau, còn hơn là bây giờ gặp nhau chẳng hạn như là hello ông Ken hay là hello chú Ken. nó tạo ra một cái giống như là mình giống như tuy là mình respect nhau nhưng mà mình vẫn mình feel intimidated by each other somehow,
Không có thân mật, nó không có thân mật.
Thôi bây giờ mình có một cái idea nè. Bây giờ anh em mình kêu tao mày cho nó dễ dàng.
I don't know about
cái
that.
đó
No,
cái
I
đó
don't
thì
know
đi ra
about that.
ngoài, cái đó đi ra ngoài ăn uống hát karaoke, yes. Nhưng mà trong
So
hội
what?
đàn không nên.
So when I was younger, I was taught that that was a bad word. So because I would go out and all my friends would call each other Tao and Mai and stuff like that. And so I was told never to call each other that. It's rude, it's disrespectful, it's just not nice. So don't use it. So I was taught that it was a bad word. And so now when I hear it amongst friends,
Cringy.
it's yeah, cringy. Very cringy.
But there's a beauty to it though too, because I'll bust it out when I get really close to some of my guy friends, even if they're a little older, and they'll use it with me. And once we cross that threshold, like I don't know if you guys know Jin Hoi, right?
Yes.
You know, he's a really good friend of mine. He's become a good friend of mine. And whenever he calls me Tao với mày, oh my God, it feels so good. You know, he's like, hey, mày. And you know, when he calls me mày, it feels so something for me, you know, and I it's like a badge of like honor for me for him to call me Mai. That means we're really close for him to do that. But on the flip side of it, like if we're on the street and somebody calls me Tao and they don't know me, that's a fight. Those are fighting words now, right? So it's
disrespectful sometimes, right? Yeah.
But it's such a beautiful Vietnamese is such a beautiful thing, the nuances of the language.
It is. And it's so hard to explain to someone who's not familiar with it. It's so hard to explain.
And I wanted to talk to you guys about what you just introduced about the interracial relationships, because that to me is such an interesting topic, and it changes every decade for a person like me, right? Like in the early years, I really would never date a Vietnamese person, and then as I gotten older, I can't go back. I mean, I was married to a Taiwanese woman for 10 years, and you know, we separated, and you know, my friends say, well, who would you date? I couldn't date anybody other than a Vietnamese person. There's no way. It's impossible for me. It's impossible. Yeah, it's just the most difficult thing to think about if I dated somebody outside of
Really?
Cái văn hóa mình nó dày lắm. It's so deep inside of me. And now for the first time in my life, I'm like so comfortable with who I've become as a Vietnamese person. So không phải là mình lên án cái vấn đề mà, you know, dating outside, but it is very specific to the food we eat, what we call each other, you know, how close you can actually get with another Vietnamese person if you understand the culture. And I will never trade that at this point in my life.
So, you know, I'm single and I've dated outside my race quite a bit. And it's just harder for me to find someone in the Vietnamese culture that is really accepting of me as I am, whether it's in the way I look, the way I act, the way I talk, because, you know, I consider myself to be a very strong female. And so I feel like it's really hard for me to find someone who is accepting of that of me in the Vietnamese culture, because a lot of the males in the Vietnamese culture still have those defined gender roles, right? So I feel that it may be a little different for me to find someone who's Vietnamese. I mean, I would love to date a Vietnamese. I would love to find that person that's Vietnamese, because I love our culture, I love our language, I love our food, and so if I could find that person, oh yeah, that'd be ideal.
And I empathize with you, because I'll bust it out right now. There's two things that we're looking at here. First of all is this idea of yachung, right? That is a big, is that, Zui, is that a word, right? When you think of this idea of like the man being the head of it's called yachung, right? Am I right here? And then this other thing of chồng chúa vợ tôi, right? That is, these things are very prevalent. Now, you dig down into like the second generation like me, who was born here, I still have to deprogram myself from these gender roles that we haven't caked in the Vietnamese community. So if I'm so aware of this, right, like every day I'm dealing with this misogynistic sort of programming from my uncles, from my father, from people who had no idea, I cannot imagine what you have to deal with, you know, with guys who are not even aware that this is programmed into our culture. So that's I can empathize with you.
Yeah, and you know, some people told me, Teresa, you're very intimidating. You
Sometimes.
you're a leader, you go out there, you do things, and you're out there in the community a lot. You volunteer for so much that it's a little intimidating to come and approach you and talk to you. And I was like, I never think that I am. I think I'm very approachable, but maybe it's my roles that I have in the community that cause that to happen. I don't know.
And
So
it's
if you
so
know
much easier
anyone, Ken,
it's so much easier to date a white person because they don't have these walls
correct.
built up and they don't have these programmed, ideas of toxic masculinity. I mean, let's call it what it is. It's very toxic
It is.
on that level.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, I can go on this for hours, because I've dealt with it. I've dealt with it as failures in my own marriage or failures in my own ways of being around strong Vietnamese women here in LA. Just catching myself going, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right because I'm dealing with these values that were instilled. I mean, let's face it, from my mom, right? She's like, con là con trai quý, right? It's this whole idea of like the man or the son being so valued, and we have to break those walls down because I have a daughter, and I'm like, I cannot allow her to live in that world of this male hierarchy or patriarchy.
Yeah. So back when remember when I said that I used to live in Canada and then I've never you know step outside of Canada, giống như con cóc ngồi dưới đáy giếng, right? So in 2003, when the first time when I went to Len Duong Camp, I have the same mentality. You know, đàn ông là gia trưởng, man first and then, woman second. And then when at that time, I remember my ideal kind of the wife is like this, okay? Con gái người Huế, phải thùy mị, phải biết tam tòng tứ đức. I don't know if you know that word, tam
Yes, I
tòng
do
tứ đức.
know that word. Yes.
Right? And because I've been programmed, I've been programmed like that since I was young. Con gái là phải biết tam tòng tứ đức, phải biết nấu nấu ăn rửa chén, phải biết nấu ăn ngon, and all of that stuff. And I thought that would be an ideal woman for me. And then when I went to Len Duong Camp, and I saw so many different type of women, independent woman, feisty woman, very talented woman, and and then I met Cô Duy Lang Lê. I don't know if you know Cô Duy Lang Lê. Cô Duy Lang Lê is she used to work for Texas Instrument. She got featured on Paris by Night by Nguyễn Ngọc Ngạn. She's the first. I think she's the first female Vietnamese female CEO in corporate America, and she climbed all the way from the bottom to the top, and she got a lot of my respect. And then it's not just her, and then because of Len Duong Camp, I get to meet all of this beautiful independent woman. And my wife is very feisty, stubborn as hell, and very independent, but she's very smart and she's very caring and she's very loving. And because of Len Duong Camp, I was able to see beyond that exterior, side of her, and I get to see beyond that, and then, once I was able to break that barrier, I fall in love with her, and that's when I know that she's the one I want to marry, because I think that because now we live in America, everything has to be equal. I mean, male, female, I don't think it's matter anymore. I think it's all about chemistry. It's all about compatibility. Nếu mà mình yêu nhau, mình thương nhau mà mình không có hợp nhau thì trước sau gì đi nữa mình cũng sẽ ly dị đấy. So
it's true. Very true.
Yeah,
very true. So let's go back to the camp. I mean, this is such a great topic, and I like going on these tangents because it's part of who we are, and I think it's part of like life, and it's related to the journey of Len Duong and all these ideas of like interracial marriage that you guys have introduced. Why is the camp limiting sort of only under 300? Is that on purpose, or because I could see something like this going to like 500 people, 1,000 people easily, but why limit it?
And it's simply just logistics and the number of staff we have available. We've had larger camps like 300 plus, and it's just been very tough for us as staff to control the activities. We plan every single activity, and so when you plan for a larger number, it takes quite a bit more in terms of logistics and planning, and also in terms of finding locations that can house that many people. So that's really what's hindered us from a really growing camp. And we feel that with a smaller number of 200, 250 or so, we're able to give each camper the best experience that they can have. They're not lost amongst the large number of campers. The campers to staff ratio is a lot better. And so it kind of helps facilitate all of the ideals that we're hoping to have at camp, which is that sense of bonding, that sense of community. And, that's really one thing that I really appreciate about Camp Len Duong is, like Jaime said, I met him through camp. But I have I call a Canadian family. They are my brothers and my sisters, and I would never have met them had it not for Len Duong Camp. In fact, I have friends all over the U.S. because I've met them through Len Duong Camp, whether it's in D.C., Seattle, or wherever. And so that's something that we really want to emphasize is the fact that you're going to create bonds at Len Duong Camp that you would never have created had it not been for Len Duong Camp.
I can imagine. But now here's the other question. Mm-hmm. The amount of returning campers, the amount of returning attendees, that has to sort of drop off in order for new people to come in to experience the camp. So do you all have sort of a limitation on how many times you can attend? Or is it basically the same people showing up every year after year with a little bit of new people? Is there a format to that formula?
Jaime,
no, I don't think so, because I've been I've been to the camp for the last 20 years, and then I think every 2 years, we have different kind of campers coming in, because every year we have Len Duong Camp at different location, and then every time we have at different location, half of the campers that go to the camp is from that location, and let's just say we have about 150 to 200 campers per year. Probably 20 or 30 of them come back for the second year, and then after that they're gonna join us. If they love Len Duong Camp that much, they would join the staff team, and then so that we can continue Len Duong Camp for years to come, because Len Duong Camp is not run by the elders. Len Duong Camp is run by former Len Duong campers, people like me, people like Teresa, and then we continue that tradition because we believe in it. And then the reason why we can only limit 200 campers, I'm going to be real, because budget. Believe it or not, it costs us $100,000 to put this camp together. And in the past, in the 90s and in the 2000s, it's easy to do this camp because Len Duong Camp was the only camp in the United States that do this kind of thing. But now, since like 5-10 years ago, because of YouTube and all the stuff, and Facebook and TikTok and all the stuff, all these young people nowadays, they have so many exposures. Like they can go learn anything, either at home, or their parents gonna send them to, music camp, sport camp, whatever camp that they can go to. I mean, it's so easy for them they have access to so many different camps. So Len Duong have to continue to innovate. How can we stay on top, and how can we continue to be the camp that people want to come? So every year we always have to come up with new ideas. We have to go to other camp, like you mentioned, trại ở phía bên, trại kết đoàn ở phía in Washington, the UNAFSA camp. We attend those camp too. And back then we used to have I think the Len Duong conference, the Tuổi Trẻ conference in California. We went to that too, so that we can learn from each other, so that we can find more way to innovate, so that we can attract more young campers to come, because $100,000 is a lot to do the camp. So we need a lot of sponsors, and we need a lot of help too. And the only way to do that is you have to do it from the heart. That's why we have that's why we have that theme. Mình không làm từ trái tim á là mình sẽ nản và mình sẽ bỏ. So if you have that passion and you love the camp, you will continue to come back and give.
And I think that I can proudly say that I think Len Duong Camp is one of the first leadership camps we had for that age range. That is for those in the Vietnamese community. And there are so many camps out there right now. And a few of them, I think, have been spawned or created by former Len Duong campers who have seen what we've done, who've branched out and created their own camps in their own areas. And that has grown also. So I have to say, we are probably one of the first youth leadership camps for this age range for the Vietnamese community. And so I'm proud to declare that to everybody. And I'm proud to say that a lot of our former campers have gone out and started their own camps out there. And not just that, we have many of our former campers who have created their own community groups, nonprofit groups that have focused on their passions. And so this camp, Len Duong Youth Leadership Camp, really does create future leaders of the community.
So let's talk about the dates and how people can sign up for it.
Sure. So Len Duong Camp this year is going to be over Memorial Day weekend. That is from Friday, May 26th, and which is like probably in the early afternoon of that day to early Monday afternoon, the 29th. And this year it'll be at YMCA Camp Cullen in Trinity, Texas. And that's about an hour and a half drive north of Houston. And so we currently have early bird registration right now, and as a discounted rate of $195. What that includes is all meals, room and board. So this is not actual camping in a tent. We will be in cabins with bunks, with showers. You'll be fed all day with snacks. And what I really like is the Anh Khuya, which is the late night meal. It's always pho.
Midnight snack.
Or midnight snack. Midnight snack.
Love it.
Yeah. So I always like, because it's always traditionally Vietnamese food, whether it's pho or jiao or what have you. Because during the day, the camp provides the food, and it's usually American food. And so after March 20th, the fee goes up to $225.
There's such a magic to this idea of that, Anh Khuya, right? We have jiao, and when it's cold and we're out, and just the bonding of being around người của mình, we're eating jiao, and such a magical thought.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's, like you said earlier, when you said growing up, you would never imagine dating a Vietnamese girl, right? And I think that as the first generation that was born here in the US, or it was more of trying to assimilate.
Yeah.
So you didn't connect with your culture very much. But as you get older, maybe around high school, college years, you really craved that. You craved it. And so you searched for it. And I think that this camp allows you to fulfill that craving you have of being more immersed in your culture, learning more about your culture. And I think that there are aspects of this camp that really focus on teaching you things about your culture that you never knew. And even if it's cultural things that you lived with, but you never realized it was culture, I think you will find that at this camp also.
Yeah. It's not that I didn't grow up with it. I grew up with Vietnamese women that were beautiful that I dated, but the psychological separation of wanting to assimilate so bad and being a white American, it overwhelmed the idea of the actual bonding with a Vietnamese woman or Vietnamese culture. So for me, it was always there. I was in the military for 4 years, and every time I went in the first 2 years of the military and I went to the chow hall, I would look for the name tag, Nguyen, Chang, Pham, or whatever, right? I would always look, and then I would like gather them, and then we would party together. We would do weekends where we cooked together in our rooms. So it was always there, but there was a separation, this disconnect of being Vietnamese and allowing the culture to be fully integrated into my own personality and be proud of it. It was always segmented. Now today, just being 47 now, I can fully appreciate, and both cultures can exist. The American culture and the Vietnamese culture can exist side by side as well. I can imagine being at the Camp Len Duong is something that will allow the youth to kind of like see that but young people today are much more open to this sort of like duality or third culture kids. It's not the struggle that I think that Teresa and I probably, so you're probably a little younger than us, right?
No, not that much. I'm turning 45 this year. So.
Damn, you look young. Holy cow. I thought you were like 28. I swear to God, I thought he was like 28, 30 years old. This is Audience members, when you're listening to this, this Zui is not what what he looks to be. Wow, I thought you were like under 30 for real. Yeah, you are
Nice.
definitely in our generation.
It's the filter.
Wow, amazing. But so yeah, I mean, there's this idea of like being able to kind of like coexist in the space of being proud of being Vietnamese and then being American today. It's just a beautiful thing.
So I do a lot of volunteer work, but I also volunteer for the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, which is the largest rodeo in, I guess, the nation, one of the largest.
The best.
And
The best.
the best. So I am actually on leadership in one of my committees. So there's, like 20,000 volunteers. They're broken down in different committees, and I'm actually the vice chairman, one of the vice chairmen on my committee. And the rodeo itself is maybe 85% Anglo.
Yeah. Caucasian.
And I'm probably less than 0.001% of people who are in leadership that are not Caucasian. And so it's hard because I have to straddle, going to VCSA, speaking all Vietnamese, doing all the Vietnamese culture stuff, and then going to the rodeo, which is ongoing right now, and leaving all that behind. And that includes, if I have a committee member, I do have committee members on my committee that are Vietnamese, not speaking Vietnamese because it makes other people uncomfortable.
Right.
So it's a total straddling between the two, totally. I had a friend that called it something. I forgot what she called it, but it was basically turning it off and turning it back on.
Code switching.
Yeah, code switching. That's it. That's the word. Yeah. So, and it's just part of who I am now, to the point where I just do it naturally. I don't even think about it anymore. So.
Yeah, and that's integrated in who we are as Vietnamese Americans. Yeah. So, thank you both for coming on today, and I look forward to meeting you Memorial Day weekend. Is there any other things that we can sort of let the audience know if they're interested in going? Website, Twitter, IG, whatever that we need to help promote the idea of Camp Len Duong. We can talk about it now.
Yeah. So Len Duong Camps, we have a lot of scholarships available for people that need financial aid, especially out of state campus. We have over 10 scholarships, and the scholarships of from $200 to $500. You can find all of this information on www.lenduongcamp.com or .org. Or just go to Google and type Len Duong Camp. You will see Len Duong Camp links pop up everywhere, because we have been featured on Paris by Night. We've been around since 1998, so we've been around for a long time. So Google has a good track records of who we are. But so you can visit our website www.lenduongcamp.com to find out more about us, or to register and sign up for that early bird price, which is only $195. After March 20th, it's gonna go up to $225.
Yeah, I mean, if people think about it, obviously if you're a young student or a young person and you don't have 195, it's like, I get it, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you're a working professional and you're in your 20s, late 20s, early 30s, I mean, this is 195 is like peanuts. I mean, we have to understand that this is fully financed from sponsors in the community and the goodwill of like big business people that really locked down and put the money out so you can experience this. And the 195 is really peanuts, chump change compared to what you can get for the weekend.
And we are really grateful for the sponsors that have helped us, including Regal Nail Salon and Spa, the offices of Michael Dow CPA, Texas Instruments, Ms. Zuyan Lei, NAM Cafe, Lyceum Life Skills and Professional Development, the Institute for Civic Education. So we would not be able to put on this camp without these sponsors. And we continue to seek out sponsors. If there's anybody out there that would like to sponsor this organization, feel free to go on the website, lenduongcamp.org, or you can reach out to me directly. My email is teresa.trin@vcsa.org. That's TERESA.TRINH @V as in Victor, CSA.org.
Thank you both.
Or you
for
can
that.
email to Len Duong Camp at vcsa.org.
Wonderful. And, again, we just return back to the sponsorship. Without these sponsors in our community, we cannot move the sort of mountains that we move. It's like we need these corporate sponsors. We need these big business people to, give back, and they do. And it's just amazing. And anybody out there who is considering going to the camp should really look into it, because it's really a steal. And I understand if you're a young student, that's a whole nother thing. But, if you're out in the space and you're in the corporate world and you're working, please look into this. Thank you.
And if you're a student, we have plenty of sponsorships available out there, from, like Jaime said, from $200 to $500 that will cover airfare for those that have to travel, in addition to your camp fees. So there really isn't any hindrance in you attending camp.
Yeah. Thank you both so much for coming on today. And I hope to see you Memorial Day weekend as I come in, and, can't wait to give you both a hug when I see you.
Yes. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Thank you for listening to The Vietnamese with Kenneth Nguyen. The Vietnamese is produced by Brittany Tran. Special thanks to Jane Nguyen, Catherine Nguyen, Tina Pham, Sydney Jamie, and Christo Trinh. Please find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at The Vietnamese Podcast. You can also find us on YouTube, where you can subscribe, like, and comment. Please rate and give us a review wherever you find our podcasts.